Folks, let me welcome Chad, who handles sales, who leads sales for Herculite, right? So we extend a warm welcome to Chad for agreeing to come and share his experiences, right? So welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you to be here.
Yeah. Chad, would you like to start by doing a quick introduction of Herculite as a company, as well as you, your career, your role? Yeah, that would be great to start. Yeah.
Absolutely. Herculite is a U.S. manufacturer of industrial textile fabrics. We are the largest manufacturer of flexible textile composites in the United States. We're located in York, Pennsylvania, which is just north of Baltimore and just south of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm the vice president of sales, and I'm also have taken on the role of kind of the unofficial role of OKR czar at Herculite, getting our team up and running with OKRs over the course of the last 18 months.
Great. Thanks, Chad. And can you give us a little bit of a background about the history of the OKRs in Herculite, right? How did it come about, right? How did it evolve? And how did the need arise, right? Can you throw a little bit of a background, please?
Yeah, my OKR journey probably started 15 or so years ago with reading the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, which is really kind of more of an internal personal discipline around managing your workflow and managing your activities and prioritizing. I wanted to transition that to our sales group. So we started with getting things done as a group. And as that kind of developed, the next phase of that would have been some goal setting and goal management. Then I read the book Radical Focus by Christina Wadke, great book about OKRs. That was kind of my introduction to OKRs as a tool. Really aligned it nicely with the getting things done philosophy that David Allen wrote about. Then I read High Output Management by Groves, and then Measure What Matters by Dorr. And really felt like we had some wonderful tools to create some alignment organizationally, break down some silos organizationally. And so that was kind of the genesis of OKRs at Herculite.
That's awesome. So, which means it looks like you are a great reader of, a lot of management philosophies and books. So, probably I'm going a little out of the limb here, but how do OKRs compare with some of the other, let's say, strategy execution frameworks that you have dealt with, and why were you, particularly attracted to OKRs?
What I really liked about OKRs as a whole was the key measurable results, or the KRs. I like to call them KMRs because I like the fact that they're measurable.
Okay.
Allowed for, one of the things that we see with goals is, how do you measure a goal? How do you determine whether a goal is achieved or not? And one of the things that really resonated with me around OKRs was that, breaking that goal down into key measure results, breaking the goal or the objective down into quarterly objectives, and then breaking those quarterly objectives down into something that's actually actionable, which goes back to that getting things done kind of philosophy of what is actionable, what can you do next, and how do you know when it's done? So I would say that was what really attracted me to the OKR process.
Great. And when you wanted to implement OKRs at Herculite, when you're looking at any specific challenges which needed to be addressed, and what were the business problems that you wanted to solve? Yeah.
A couple of things. Certainly, one of the things from a sales perspective is our team was really struggling with how to focus on the things that were going to have the biggest impact the quickest. And lots of sales leads, lots of opportunities, lots of activities, lots of, hey, I've been really busy this week. Oh, really? Well, tell me what you were busy with. And when you get down to the what was I busy with kind of answer to that question, I was finding that often the things that people were busy with were not the things that were going to move the needle as effectively as we wanted to. So I was wanting people to be able to prioritize their activities, because everybody can be busy, right? I mean, you can be busy 60 hours a week doing absolutely nothing if you're not careful. It's what are you busy with, and how are you allocating your time towards the things that are going to have the biggest impact?
So, and once you decided to implement OKRs, did you decide to go with a software along with the program, or did you practice, let's say, with spreadsheets for some time and then you switched to software? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I decided to move the sales group to OKRs, we started with a spreadsheet tool that was very manual on my part, and it worked effectively. It was a quarterly spreadsheet that would rank performance against objectives and key measure results on a bi-weekly basis, and allow for check-ins that with each of my staff to make sure that we were staying on line with those particular objectives. But it did not work well for cross department activities and visibility across the organization. So one of the things that we wanted, as the president asked me to move OKRs deeper within our organization, one of the things that I wanted to really pursue was a lot of visibility. And one of the things I really liked about ProfitGo is, number one, it's very, very easy to use, very easy for everybody to move within and navigate, but also gives wonderful visibility across the whole organization. And that helps to break down silos so that people in the engineering department can see what people in the sales department are doing, can see what production goals are, and see how their work aligns with the company's larger objectives.
Sure. And when you did the final selection, right, of the OKR software tool, you mentioned the important factors that you've considered, but did you also consider other products, and how did the evaluation go, with multiple people involved in the selection process itself?
Yeah, it's a good question. We had started utilizing a performance review tool called Halogen that was okay, but did not really combine the performance review part of things and the OKR things very, very well. And it was pretty clunky. So we tried that. That wasn't going to work for OKRs. We continued that for performance reviews while I had started working with spreadsheets on the OKR side. And then our vice president of HR, and really, she was the one that found ProfitGo. I had tested it out maybe a year or two prior, but then she'd found it again when she was looking at a combination of the performance review piece and the OKR piece, and that's when we decided to explore it again, look at it.
Okay, awesome. That's excellent. And how is the implementation, like implementing a software, moving from Excel to or sorry, spreadsheet to Profit.co? How was that implementation experience? How did your team members feel about the implementation? Was the process seamless? How did you feel?
Yeah, no, good question as well. We started with our OKR process, moving into ProfitGo with the direct sales team, because that was a team that had the most experience with OKRs as a whole, and did that for a quarter. I kind of championed that with that group, and then I rolled out and started working with a couple other vice presidents of different segments of our organization. And in quarter two, we rolled out to HR, we rolled out to operations, we rolled out to engineering, and got them up to speed. And then in the following quarter, we brought it out to the entire organization. So we started with a small group, and it really went very smoothly. I got to say that with all the software that I've dealt with, we've been through some ERP launches, we've been through some CRM launches, we've been through a number of different things. There's never been a company that's been more responsive and capable of helping us and willing to help us through the implementation process as ProfitGo has been. So that's been just really extraordinary. The team's been incredible.
Thank you very much, Chad. That really means a lot, coming from somebody with your experience and background. Let me ask you one more question. Since you were a sales leader, and that you would be asking this team to use CRM probably to record their sales activities and results every week. Did your team members ask this question? Hey, we're already using a CRM. Where do we need to use OKRs or Profit.co as well? Did that question come along?
Not directly, but indirectly. I understand what you're asking. Certainly the CRM piece is really the management of interactions, estimates, opportunity development, lead development, and kind of that whole piece of bringing a relationship with a customer from beginning to end. Uh, Whereas the OKR piece is a little bit higher level kind of view. It's a different horizon, if you may, where we have business managers that have objectives that are bigger than just one customer, and so while the CRM is very focused in on activities around moving a lead to an opportunity to a project to a one opportunity, this the OKR side is more of a business management tool, focusing in on the things, the types of customers that we're looking for, the types of projects that we're trying to close, and are you spending that time in the right areas of your business to have the biggest impact on what organizationally we're trying to do with the corporate objectives and key measurable results.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And now with Profit.co, how many quarters or how long have you been on OKRs, the OKR journey, Chad?
The sales team has been on now for almost a year, and the whole team is been on it for 1 quarter. So we're just getting ready for laddered out, as I shared earlier. But we're just getting ready for our first full quarter, first full year starting in 2024 with the entire organization of management level up, producing their own objectives and key measure results and getting those all aligned with our corporate objectives.
And in this 1 year with the sales team and 1 quarter with the entire organization, what are the outcomes that you're observing, things which have happened because you use OKRs?
Certainly on the sales team, I think that that group gets it now. They understand how to write an objective that is, and how to measure it. We've got some good disciplines. They think about OKRs regularly. I will say that it takes probably 2 to maybe 3 quarters for a group to really start understanding how to write an objective and key measurable results in a way that is deriving towards success. Like for instance, typically when we launched the second cadre of people, they're the first quarter objectives that they wrote were really pretty unhelpful. But what was helpful is that they started the process and they started checking in on them regularly, and we had regular check-ins. And then as they have matured into that in quarter 2 and quarter 3, we're seeing much more meaningful objectives and key measurable results. People are actually thinking about the key measurable result, going, well, how do I figure out if I achieve this? Is this the right metric? And it takes a couple quarters, in my opinion. I'm sure I would think you'd agree. It takes a couple quarters for a team to really start dialing in the right key measurable results and figuring out, was that the right one? Actually, no, it wasn't the right one at all, because look, we achieved it. We achieved that key measurable result, but we didn't even get close to our objective. So that particular key measurable result wasn't helpful in achieving the objective we were trying to reach. So the evolution of the process takes a little time and takes some patience, but you have to do it, and you have to have that check-in regularly with each of these people so that they really think about it regularly.
Right. And can you give me some examples of objectives that you had for the sales team, right? Not the specific numbers, but for the sales team, what do you think should be the important OKRs in your context?
Certainly the revenue one is always a sales-driven objective. Achieving a certain sales plan by business segment, by region, whatever the responsibility of the particular salesperson is. It's an obvious one. We have a sales funnel that's pretty clearly defined by different aspects. So a lot of the objectives on the sales side are driven by things that are clearly a part of a particular part of the sales funnel. So how many leads did you produce this quarter? How many discovery meetings did you hold this quarter? How many opportunities did you add this quarter? How many opportunities did you close this quarter? some of those things that are very key, almost KPI driven, are part of those OKRs on the sales side. Then depending on, like, inside sales has some different objectives than outside sales. Marketing folds into some of those with social media posts and case studies and things like that we want to produce. But yeah, I would say the obvious ones are lead generation, uh, opportunity development, um, case study kind of mindset, closing deals kind of things.
Okay, that's very helpful. And I definitely like your twist on key results, calling them as key measurable results to really emphasize the measurable part. I think that's quite important. Now, if we really look at outcomes, you mentioned that it has really helped the team to focus a bit better and maybe track things better, right? But has it resulted in, let's say, at least some, let's say measurable outcomes, right? Saving in time for you, right? Where you're don't have to follow up or firefighting or, sending emails to check whether things have happened, or as the achievement itself, is it a little better than before using OKRs? Right? Have you thought about those? What sort of measurable outcomes, at least for the sales team which has been using for 4 quarters?
Yeah, it's a good question. My initial gut response is yes, it has. Although that might be, I think it's accurate to say it has. Part of it, and it's one of the tools that I haven't had a chance to mention yet that I love about Profitco is the meeting function. That utilizing that meeting functionality for a check-in, allows the objectives and key measurable results to be right there in front of you. But then it'll also allows both myself and our associates to jot down some notes, of things that they want to cover during that meeting. So, and our team has gotten relatively good at that. Like, hey, you know what? I need to ask Chad about this during our meeting. They'll type in a quick note to add it to the agenda before the meeting, or I'll do the same. That's been very helpful. But I think it's not just the OKRs, and I think that Groves speaks to this in his book, High Output Management. It's the check-in process, and so I think what happens, what the OKRs give you as a manager during that check-in process is some very clear things to discuss that are obvious and measurable. And absent that OKR tool, what does that check-in look like? Hey, how you doing? How was your week? What did you struggle with? What was successful? All good things, but absent objectives and key measure results, it's all very intangible. So giving us that tool of something very important that's clearly defined to larger organizational objectives to talk about every 2 weeks is very, very critical. And that meeting tool that is part of Profit, is really, really helpful in taking the OKR side and moving it into that interaction piece that's so critical to moving things forward.
Sure. And thanks a lot, Chad. Probably the last question. So what is the future of OKRs at Herculite?
I don't see a future with Herculite without OKRs. I think that as we continue to develop organizationally, we will continue to have, as part of our senior management planning tools, the development of corporate objectives, and then working out the alignment within our organization, and having it be just part of our DNA. I had an opportunity on a plane once to sit next to someone who works at Google, and as you well know, Google is a huge OKR people, and this was just a young lady. She was a software engineer, and I looked over to her and I said, "Oh, you work at Google? That's interesting. Tell me about OKRs." And her face looked at me. She looked at me like, "Well, what do you know about OKRs?" And I'm like, "Well, I've read a couple things." And she was like, "Oh yeah, we love OKRs. We do them all the time. It's just part of it." And I said, "Well, how often do you meet with your manager?" And she goes, "Well, I meet with my manager in 2 weeks, and yeah, it's really helpful and directive." And my point in telling the story is I want everybody at Herculite to be just like everybody at Google, that well, yeah, OKRs is just who we are. It drives who we are. It drives where we're going, and it gives us clarity as to what our role is into where we're going organizationally.
Sure. That's awesome. Folks, we really wanted to thank Chad for taking the time and sharing quite a few great insights, right? Particularly, I liked, his take on key results and emphasizing them as key measurable results. How does the sales team get benefited out of OKRs, right? And how he's using the meeting component of Profit.co, how, Herculite is benefiting from that, right? We really would like to appreciate and thank you very much, right, for joining us today, Chad.
Have a great day. Thank you.